Morning, everybody. How you doing? Welcome back to the Spurs Talk Show. I am Sean Butler. Bugsy Malone is over there, waiting for the ball to be thrown. Just fell into a pothole. Almost broke my ankle. Hope you're okay. We'll put this in the outtakes. Please do me a favour, guys. Hit the like button for me on the video. Hit the subscribe. If you haven't already, even if you have, double check you still are. Hit the notification bell and drop a comment. Let me know your thoughts on today's topics. And of course, it's Tottenham news, views and clues. We spoke about this one yesterday, or two of them yesterday, briefly on a live stream with Johnny when we did a new show called On the Back Page. But this morning I've woken up and I've seen these rumours percolating in more and more heavier duty Italian and Spanish press. A lot of it's on Twitter this morning. You may have seen it. Two different stories percolating, two different players, both of them fairly similar when you sort of dial into the Y-Scout tool and take a look. We're going to start with the first one, which is Icelandic international, 26-year-old Albert Gudmundsson, 26 years old, plays for Genoa. He's a striker, but if you watch him and if you watch the Y-Scout highlight reel and the everything reel and the zoning in on his best bits reel, then you will see he floats and his positional play, you might find him on the left, you might find him on the right, you might find him on the halfway line. In fact, one of the things that he loves to do more than most, and what I've identified about this guy, is he loves to come deep, receive the ball, sort of like how Harry Kane used to, but then turn and just drive and run. And I'll be honest, it's by far his best bit of his game. His ability to run with the ball at speed and with sort of structural strength and a low centre of gravity. He's not that small. I think he's about 5'10". But his ability to run at pace and ride through challenges is very, very impressive. And I'll be honest, guys, he's got 11 goals, I think, this season, or 12 goals now this season for Genoa, and 4 assists, I believe, in all competitions. I think that's about right. It's either 11 and 3 or 12 and 4. But his game, for me, the best part of his game is around that. It's around the ability to get the ball deep and just drive and run. And I think he actually over-eggs the pudding a little bit with it. When I've watched him, I think that sometimes he takes one step too far, too many, tries to take on one player too many. And ultimately, you know, he could be doing a lot more with the chances that kind of pop up and materialise as an outcome from his ability to drive into space. He's brilliant at that particular part of his game. I'm not a massive fan of his finishing. It looks clumsy. It reminds me of Serhou Guirassy, the Stuttgart striker that we've reviewed on this channel. When he does score goals, it doesn't look to me like they're particularly well thought through. It looks like they're all kind of just opportunist kind of goals, and sometimes, you know, they bounce off the right part of the body in a lucky moment, fortune moment, and they go in. If you're looking for a player that's going to bang in 30 goals next season, and I don't think Albert Gudmundsson's the guy. However, what I would say is that he does offer things that I think that no one in our team currently does. And it leaves me a little bit kind of pondering whether or not he's the right guy for the system, because I don't follow Italian Serie A that much, so I don't really know Genoa's game very well, and I don't really know what they come up against too much. But in the clips that I've seen, when you zoom in on the Y-Scout onto his various departments, he looks like a lot of the time it's kind of on the break stuff. And I don't know if Tottenham are going to intend to continue to have 70% possession, 80% possession against the majority of teams. I don't know if we're going to be doing counter-attacking, breaking football. And so how often is he going to have the opportunity to drive at players with the space behind to take advantage of it? I'd say not often. But what I would also say is that he is... There's plenty of examples of him getting the ball around the box and doing trickery and running at pace in between and juking and jinking in between players that have set up a structural back line. So I'm not sure with this guy whether or not his utility in our team is going to be of massive use, massive utility, but for sure he offers something we don't currently have. And he's nice to watch. He's an out of your seats guy, and I'll show you the stats. If you look at the stats to me tell a story where if you were just looking at the stats, you would say, wow, in everything apart from his goals per 90 and his assists per 90, everything apart from that, he looks like one of the best players in Europe. He looks like he's a top 2 or 3 percentile player for every passing stat you could want, for every dribbling and take-on stat you could want, for every in-possession stat you could want. He's up there with basically the top 2 or 3 percentile across the top 5 leagues. So statistically, he looks like a dream signing. But when you watch him, what I've seen of him, I wonder whether or not he's going to be able to utilise those skill sets in our system, and whether or not he would he'd frustrate the fans a little bit with over egging the pudding with his dribbling skills. Let me know if you know anything more about him, or if you watch him. A lot of people I spoke to about him think he's brilliant. I'm not that convinced, if I'm entirely honest. Good on the eye, the stats look great, but the output at the end of the day, is he getting enough goals? Is he going to be the 25, 30 goal guy? And that depends if Tottenham want him as a striker or as the winger, because from what I've seen, he could play pretty much anywhere. For what it's worth, the last caveat I would say is that, you know, he's signed for Genoa from AZ Alkmaar for, I think it was like £2 million, £1.5 to £2 million a couple of years ago, 2022. And he's now valued at 35 million euros, 40 million euros by Genoa. Inter Milan and AC Milan are looking at him. A lot of Italian clubs are obviously keeping a close eye because he's kind of having a breakout season. And that reminds me a little bit, as I mentioned before, of Serhou Guirassy, a player that's turned 27 and hasn't really been seen too much of at the highest end and levels of European football until you get to that mid-stage of your career. Is that a red flag, or should we really be sort of dismissing late bloomers? Lots of late bloomers have added a lot of value to their teams over the years. I'm just not sure if this guy is the one for me, and 35, 40 million, it's a lot of money. It'll be a big chunk of the budget. I'm 50-50, but if I'm leaning any way, guys, I'm saying I'm leaning against it, if I'm entirely honest. Let me know your thoughts. The other story that's percolating today is another player that can leave a little bit to be desired, but on the eye looks fantastic, and on paper you would think just what you need. Raphinha. More and more noise about Raphinha to Tottenham. Arsenal and Tottenham going to battle it out for the Brazilian Barcelona winger. He turned us down a couple of years ago when he left Leeds, and he could have gone to Tottenham. He went to Barcelona instead. I don't hold that against him necessarily. Why would you favour going to Tottenham over, you know, one of the biggest names in world football in Barcelona? But a guy who, again, on his day, in the moment, he can be magical, special player, special talent, can juke and jink and dance around players. He's got a goal in him. He always has had a goal in him. He's not afraid to have a shot. He can put it in the top bins anytime he wants. However, he doesn't do it enough. I think for Barcelona this year, could be wrong, haven't checked the stats, but I think he's got fewer than 5 goals. I'm not sure how many minutes he's getting on a goals per minute basis. You'll see it on the I'll put the stats up so you can have a look. Again, one of these players that's going to cost you 50, 60 million quid because of the kind of name, the brand, the fact that he's done it in the Premier League before. He's 27 years old as well. Are Tottenham going to bring in a player who's 27 years old, who's non-homegrown, who's going to cost the vast majority of the budget? And does he really offer you the 10, 12 goals that you're going to need from wide men next year? I think that a lot of the Tottenham fans that I'm listening to in the community right now are all on the same page. Whether you love Decky, whether you dislike him, whether you love Brennan Johnson, whether you dislike him, the same for Manuel Solomon, the same for Timo Werner. The question is, we need to get that front three firing. We need to get them more consistently delivering assists to another person within the front three, and ultimately all of them sharing around the responsibility. Look, Richarlison's taken on a lion's share of that responsibility over the last kind of 2 or 3 months, and fair play to him. You know how I feel about him as a player and as increasingly a little bit as a person, if I'm honest. But his goals have been valuable to us. I'm curious to see how you guys feel about the idea of, do you need someone better than Richarlison? If Richarlison's a poacher, and if you've got someone on the right and someone on the left who's able to drive and drill low balls across, like Brennan Johnson is starting to do a lot better with, but coming from the left-hand side as well, putting the ball into the danger zone, then people like Richarlison can benefit. People like Sonny can benefit. I just think that we need, first and foremost, we need a striker that's going to get you 20, 25 goals. Someone that you can sit there and maybe not represent or replace Harry Kane, but close the gap. I don't think Richarlison's that guy, personally. But then outside of them, you need players that can do the stereotypical thing that you want Ange Ball to do, which is get to the byline, drive with pace and intention, take on players, and then either pull it back to the penalty spot, pull it back to the 6-yard spot, or whip it in as a cross, or take pot shots. Destiny Udogie was a beneficiary from Perisic early in the season. He's also been a beneficiary of that when it's worked out with Timo Werner and with Ben Johnson on the left-hand side, but we're not seeing enough of it. So we need to identify wingers that can tick those boxes. Raphinha probably is someone who can do that. You know, he does have all that skill. So does Nico Williams. So does Antonio Nusa, who, by the way, spoke about the fact that he's over his injury problems. It was a concern for him, but he's over them now. And so will Tottenham go back to that and see if we can resurrect that deal in the summer? We will find out, guys. We'll find out. But for me, I think if Tottenham are going to go after it, I'm not sure if Gudmundsson's the guy that fits what we need specifically. A very interesting player. I think you'll see more of him, but also I'd like to see him do it for 1 or 2 more seasons. Even then, he's 28, 29, it's too late. So I think that one, the ship has sailed for me on Albert Gudmundsson, but if Ange wants him, if Tottenham think it's value for money, I'll get on board it. He's interesting, but I think there's better value for money out there, and I think there's better players that fit the system out there. Let me know who you think they are, guys. We'll talk more about that tonight on the live stream and over the weekend. Like, subscribe, and comment. And as always, bye-bye.